Hey, this is your Olympic hero, Kurt Angle, and you're listening to Top Rope Nation. Oh, it's true. It's damn true.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time!
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah!
I finished these fights.
Give me a hell yeah!
Top Rope Nation.
Learn to love it. It's the best thing going today.
On the air for the first time in 2021, Top Rope Nation, episode 191. My name's Ryan Drosty, and I am joined tonight by my sidekick, Mr. Kyle Ross. Talking for the first time on air this year, although obviously we talk almost every single day via text. But Kyle, I mean, how's your 2021 going? And tell the listeners what you've been up to since our last show 2 weeks ago.
Whew. What have I been up to in 2021? Watching a lot of television, I guess. Not just wrestling, playing catch up furiously for this first pod of the new year. Happy New Year to all the listeners out there, by the way. But obviously a lot of football as well over the weekend. So yeah, I've been glued in front of the tube and getting real fat. Ate a small mini bag of Doritos right before we hit play here. That was real smart, I'm sure. I don't even know why I did it, quite frankly.
Had to turn off the webcams because he was just spraying Dorito crumbs all over his cam and couldn't barely see him anymore. So I said, Kyle, we're not doing video for this show.
Truthfully, I think I just look like shit right now.
So what you're saying, Kyle, is so far your 2021 has not included trying to overthrow the United States government. You haven't been a part of that.
No, it hasn't. And, on that note, I'll say this. It's a good thing Val Venus is a porn star because boy, do his takes eat ass, huh?
Oh, boy. He's real bad. Real bad. We had a tweet to him from the Top Rope Nation Twitter account the other day. That was me, by the way. I'll claim responsibility for that one. But you guys can check that out at Top Rope Nation. But we were getting ready to record last week what would have been the first show of 2021. I guess it was the day after the attempted coup of the U.S. government. And it was just really hard, obviously, to pay attention to pro wrestling last week here in the United States. And we decided we're just going to kind of take the week off. We didn't want to put out a crappy show, and our minds were elsewhere, and we were trying to catch up on wrestling, and it wasn't a good mix. It was a bizarre week. It was a sad week here in our country. So we took the week off. Our last show was the best of 2020. Hope you guys enjoyed that. We felt like, that was a show that people could listen to last week if they hadn't heard it already. And, it was still timely. We're looking back at the full year that was 2020. And now we're ready to dive into 2021.
Look, no judgments here, but I could not watch AEW that night.
No.
Last Wednesday live. And I really look forward to AEW. I've said it all the time on this show. It's the one weekly television show that, I make it a point to watch live. And I was like, can I look at the wife right now and be like, I'm going to flip on Dynamite? I don't know. Yeah. I was like, I made a business decision. And look, if you chose to watch Dynamite or you chose to watch NXT that night, that's cool. I'm not going to sugarcoat you. I'm just saying I couldn't. I know Ryan couldn't, and Justin joint, by God, we miss you here today. And I know he couldn't either.
No, I mean, yeah, Justin will be back next week, by the way. So looking forward to getting the trio back together next week. But yeah, it was kind of the same for me. I don't know that I have watched that much wall-to-wall news coverage for days on end since September 11th attacks, to be honest with you. I mean, I just couldn't look away from the news. It was just so sad watching what was going down. And like you said, I mean, it wasn't just us. If you look at the viewership last Wednesday night for AEW and NXT, it was like hard to justify watching pro wrestling that night. And then it was the next day. We usually record on Thursdays, and we hadn't seen everything yet. So we just kind of felt like we couldn't accurately do a show that would be worthwhile for the listeners. We want to put out quality content. So we made that executive decision, take the week off, but we're back now. So
and ready to rumble. Unlike the WWE, I believe.
That's for sure. That's going to be our leading topic. We've got we got some criticisms as WWE heads into 2021 here, but
what else is new?
hey, objective. We're objective on this podcast, and I think there's a definite reason to be frustrated.
A new year and same old takes.
That's for sure. So before we get into that, ladies and gentlemen, of course, as I said at the top of the program, this is episode 191 of this program. Started the show back in July of 2016, closing in on episode 200. And if you're listening for the very first time, or if you're a longtime listener, whether it is on, Apple, Spotify, TuneIn, wherever you get your podcasts, please be so kind as to subscribe and tap the 5-star rating, especially on Apple Podcasts. Leave us a written review. It helps us out so much. If you leave us your Twitter or Instagram username in that review, I'll reach out to you so we can send you a free Top Rope Nation die cut sticker in the mail. So help us out and we'll send you a free gift. And check out our YouTube channel. It's youtube.com/TopRopeNation. We are posting videos of every single podcast we do, except this one, as we mentioned a minute ago. This one is not going to be going up on the YouTube channel, but we will be doing a post show of the Royal Rumble later this month, and that will be a live show on the YouTube channel. So hopefully you guys can all join us on that night, January 31st. Subscribe to the channel, youtube.com/TopRopeNation. And if you'd like to support the show in the best way possible, gain exclusive bonus content like our monthly bonus podcast, Top Rope Nation Classics, and our weekly live feed, members only live feed as we record the show each and every week, and a free gift for joining, check out our Patreon page. It's patreon.com/TopRopeNation. You can find the link here in the description of the podcast. And I do want to give a special shout out to our newest member of the Patreon page. Shout out to Michael. Thank you so much for your support and joining the Patreon page. We greatly appreciate that. And I want
you to say,
yeah, I did want to take a couple of seconds here, a couple of minutes maybe, to go over some changes we made to the Patreon page that were demanded by the current patrons of the show. So with the new year starting, we talked about kind of making some changes to how we were running the Patreon page. We reached out to the members and said, what do you want to see added? Are you satisfied with what we're giving you right now? And they were, but they had some good ideas for what we could add to the Patreon page. And so I posted these changes, I guess over a week ago over on our Facebook discussion group, but I haven't had a chance to talk about it on the air because we didn't do a show last week. So there are 4 tiers now on our Patreon page. There's a $1, a $5, a $10, and a $20 tier. It's a monthly charge. Okay. So if you want to support the show at the $1 tier, and first of all, actually, let me just preface this by saying, I'm not trying to make this sound like a money grab or something like that. We're not getting rich off of Patreon, no matter how many members we have. The reason we have the Patreon page is if you like our show, it's a way for you to get more content than just the weekly podcast. It's a way to interact with us more. And it's just a way to support the show and our growth. You guys probably are well aware that there are literally hundreds of wrestling podcasts. And it is very hard to get noticed. The only way we can get this show out to new listeners really is to advertise the show, which, obviously costs money. So when you join our Patreon page, you're helping our budget so that we can advertise the show and get more listeners. You're helping us out so we can invest in new equipment. I got a new microphone last fall, largely due to our Patreon money, and we appreciate that. I appreciate that. I think maybe Kyle is next up to get some new equipment. He's had the same microphone for quite some time. So maybe we can help Kyle upgrade his equipment. We'd like to maybe get a mixing board so we can take live calls. That would be a lot of fun during our shows. So, Patreon is the way to make that happen. And to be quite honest with you, I'm competitive. I check our downloads, every single day. And I want to see this show grow. And if our downloads are staying the same every single month, it kind of gets to the point where, why are we doing this? I don't want to just talk into an echo chamber to the same people year after year after year. I want more and more people to find the show. And really the only way to do that is to advertise it. So if you want to see this show continue on for years to come, investing in our Patreon page is definitely the best way to help us out and make sure that Top Rope Nation continues into 2022 and 2023 and so on. So with all that said, here are the tiers. For $1 a month, you can join the opening match tier. What do you get for $1 a month? You get a personal thank you shout out on the air, like I just did for Michael. You get a free sticker in the mail, and you can participate in patron-only surveys, which impact the direction of our show. And I put surveys up there for our book club, which I'm about to mention for one of our other tiers. I put surveys up as far as what do you want to see out of the Patreon page. I put surveys up on our Top Rope Nation Classic show, stuff like that. You can participate for $1 a month. All right. The most popular tier right now, although I think that might be changing, is the $5 per month tier. All right. This is our mid-Carter tier, it's called. You get everything you would get at the previous $1 tier, plus access to the Patreon exclusive live video stream each and every week as we record the show. So you get the show early. You get access to the Patreon exclusive bonus podcast, Top Rope Nation Classics. We've done numerous bonus podcasts for Patreon. There's over 20 of them in the archives. You unlock all those the minute you sign up for the $5 a month tier. You also get the early release of the show. So not just that live video feed, but after I mix the show on Thursday evenings, I post the audio file with all the ads removed, by the way. Here on the yes. So Kyle, you don't have to whiz through the ads. You know, we're part of the Blue Wire Network. Those ads help us. Sponsors. Yes, those sponsors help us pay the bills too. You know, but if you're donating money to our Patreon page, you're going to get the show without ads. All right, and you get it early, the night before it releases to the world, ad-free. You also get access to an exclusive Facebook group. So we do have the Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling discussion group on Facebook. But there's a Patreon version of that only patrons have access to with a little risque content over there, if I do say so myself. A little more open on that one because it's closed off to members only. I don't mean risque as in Kyle's appearing with his pants off or anything like that, but more choice language used for sure, as well as talking about the direction of the show, where you ask for ideas on what you guys want to see each and every week. So you impact our creative direction. You get producer credit. So on our video feeds there on YouTube, there's a scroll at the bottom of the page. Your name is on every one of the shows. And you get access to our show notes every week. So all of that for $5 a month. I mean, think about it. If you saw us out at a bar post-COVID and you wanted to buy one of us a beer, I guess the cost of beer these days, Kyle, like $5 a month, that's actually cheaper than buying one of us a single beer. $5 a month. All of that, great way to support the show. I would say the biggest changes we made is this next tier. And, before, to be honest with you, last year, like really the only reason, if you joined our Patreon page, like the $5 a month tier, that was where you got everything. Like that was the best one to join. It really had the biggest draw. But now I feel like we have real good reasons where people might want to consider the $10 a month tier or even the $20 a month tier. And this was dictated by the members of the Patreon page. So I asked them, what could we add to a $10 tier that would make you want to upgrade? And 100% of them said the number one thing they wanted was this book club idea, that if we added that, they would upgrade. So as part of the $10 per month tier, the main eventer tier over on Patreon, you get everything on the $5 tier. You get everything on the $1 tier. Plus, you get, there's some sound effects in the background. Plus, you get access. Here it is, $10 a month. A monthly Zoom hangout with the hosts, myself and Kyle and Justin. Once a month, anything goes. We get on Zoom. We just hang out and chat with you guys, enjoy a few adult beverages, talk wrestling, talk sports, politics, whatever's on your mind. We'll just hang out. It says monthly Zoom hangout with us. You get access to that at the $10 a month tier. And then you get that Top Rope Nation book club. And not only is it a book club, but it also comes with author question and answer sessions. So right now, I have a poll up for our Patreon users, and there's 4 books. And based on the book that we choose for our quarterly book club, these are people where I understood that I could get them for a Zoom question and answer with our patrons. All right, so based on the book that we choose, we'll be doing this book club for 3 months, and we'll be talking about the book at those monthly Zoom hangouts. When we get done with the book, they're wrestling books, by the way, we'll invite the author on for a question and answer session on Zoom with the patrons, exclusive for you guys. You can ask these people questions. All right. So I think that was a big draw. That's going to be a lot of fun. You're also going to get access to merchandise giveaways at the $10 a month tier. Every single month, I'll do a drawing for just the $10 patrons. It'll include WWE, AEW, UFC, and Top Rope Nation merchandise. Kyle, you looking forward to these Zoom hangouts we're going to be doing?
Of course. I love talking to our listeners.
Heck yeah, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. We got to nail down the date for January because we do already have some people at that $10 a month tier. So we're going to hang out with them here in the next couple of weeks. And lastly, the Hall of Famer tier, $20 per month. The Hall of Famer tier, the Kyle Ross special. Here it is. You join the $20 a month tier. There are only 10 spots at this tier. I had to limit them. You'll understand why here in just a second. As part of that tier, you can have a guest spot on the show once per quarter if you'd like. Let us know when you want to come on, be a guest panelist. We'll invite you on the show. Secondly, a wrestling media and podcast training session with myself. So I mix the show. I've been doing podcasting now for several years. I've also been writing about wrestling online for several years, right now at comicbook.com, but I've been at various other sites over the years. So I'll do a one-on-one Zoom session with you. If you join this tier, I'll teach you how to mix a podcast. I'll teach you how to get a podcast out there in front of listeners, just basically how to create it. I'll give you tips and tricks on how to get into the wrestling media. Anything you want to know, pick my brain, right? I'll lead you through. I'll share my screen, show you how to mix an audio show. Whatever you want to know, one-on-one. If you've been wanting to launch a podcast and have some success with it, this is a good way to get some good training.
It'll be really awkward when I join this tier.
Yes. Then I'll be passing off the mixing capabilities to Kyle. And here's what I think is really cool about the $20 a month tier. Every 6 months, I'm going to send out a merchandise bundle to our $20 per month patrons. And that's going to include 2 pieces of Top Rope Nation merchandise. It might be a shirt and a sweatshirt. It might be a hat and a shirt, something like that. But every 6 months, to the Hall of Fame tier members, you're going to get a Top Rope Nation merch bundle for supporting us right there at our top tier. So those are the 4 tiers. You can read through the full descriptions. You know, I kind of tried to summarize it without taking up too much time, but we put a lot of time into reorganizing this, giving, you know, some features that people asked for and what they said in the survey and everything. And so I had to dedicate some time on the show to talk about it because I'm pretty proud of what we put together here. So again, the link is in the podcast description if you want to check that out and read through it and see if it's something for you or not. You know, no pressure either way, but it's definitely the best way to ensure that this show continues into the coming years. Patreon.com/Top Rope Nation. All right, Kyle, let's talk about it. WWE, the big topic has been the return of Mr. William Goldberg, a divisive figure on this podcast over the last 4.5 years or so, if I do say so.
Yes, I would. By the way, this podcast has now been around, let's see, we started in 16, so 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. This is technically our 6th year of existence,
yes,
if you're just counting by years. You know, we'll only be celebrating, I guess, our 5-year anniversary proper later this year, right? Because we started, but we've been around for 6 calendar years.
3 presidential administrations. How about that?
Wow, yes, as we caught the tail end of Obama. For a second, I was like, have I been napping? Did I miss somebody? Has there been an impeachment? But Bill Goldberg's return to WWE, this is what I'm getting to. Let's bring the focus back to the athletes, everybody. His second WWE run is basically as long as his podcast has been in existence, which is kind of insane.
This is very insane.
He's not around on a weekly basis like we are, obviously, but it's pretty crazy to think that Bill Goldberg's second WWE run is almost double the length of his initial WCW run.
Oh my God. It's true.
Right? Like 97 through 2000, because he was off TV for a good bit before they shut down. So, yeah.
God dang, that's right. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'd say that most of the reaction to his return, which, okay, regardless of what you think about, you know, him being the challenger to Drew at the Royal Rumble, that return was just terribly booked. Bill was confused out there.
I don't see, now hold on. That wasn't his, he was hung out to dry. If we're to believe Meltzer and some of the other reports, you know, the thing was Drew was supposed to cut a promo. Apparently him and Keith Lee went long in the match and they had to cut the promo, and Goldberg comes out and rebuts to a promo that never happened.
Yes. Exactly.
But like he's put in the top, like what's he supposed to say? You know, I mean, you know the way WWE is. God damn it, we wrote these words down and you're gonna say them.
Well, like he was watching the show though, right? Like he'd understand that
Meltzer made it seem like Meltzer in his review made it seem like he didn't know.
Oh my God. Well, like I said, he was booked horribly. And it didn't make sense at all, you know, what he was saying out there. For sure. I mean, he comes out and talks about how Drew was not respecting the legends, and everyone watching it is like, what? Nothing happened.
Does he think does he have Drew McIntyre confused with Randy Orton?
Yeah. So, all right. You know, we talked about it before. I know that like Justin and myself are not big Bill Goldberg fans, never have been, going back to 97. And, you know, to see him out here 54 years old at the second or third biggest pay-per-view of the year, challenging Drew McIntyre, it's not ideal. Not ideal. I don't want to see him out there. And I think I have an idea what you're going to say. What I will say is that rather than bringing back a legend, honestly, I'd just rather see someone just completely out of the blue challenge him from the existing roster versus a Bill Goldberg return. Now, I'll let you go ahead and talk because I know what you're going to say, I think.
Okay, see.
But go ahead.
It's funny the two options you're weighing. To be fair, what you're saying, those are the two options they have right now. But that speaks to what my issue is here. My complaints with this match are really not specific to Goldberg at all. I view Goldberg as almost a window into the soul of the modern WWE.
Yeah.
There's nobody built up for this spot. And that's why Goldberg's getting it. And that's the problem. So, I mean, you can hate Goldberg or not like him all you want. My rebuttal is, well, what was the other option? And,
right.
I just don't think there was one. You know, Justin Joint, who's not with us today, but, you know, I think has very underrated instincts. And I know you can verify this, Ryan, because you were on part of the text thread. It was several weeks ago. He texted the both of us just out of the blue. Remember this? And he's like, who's Drew McIntyre's challenger going to be at the Royal Rumble? And you and I were like, I have no idea. They're doing this, you know, thing with Sheamus and Keith Lee as two buddies that don't get along. But that didn't seem like a Rumble thing. And it wasn't. And that's the problem. You've got this huge roster. You just had a draft, by the way, where theoretically you were supposed to create these new, fresh matchups. And to this point, none of those have arisen.
Mm-hmm.
And so what does Vince do? He brings in a legend.
Yeah, it's such an indictment of the booking that they have nobody in the pipeline. And I understand it from that point of view. They just they don't have a star for him to face at a big pay-per-view like the Rumble. I would have rather seen him work Sheamus, to be honest with you.
Wow.
Much rather seen that. But
wow.
I get it because of the star power problem. And again, it's an indictment on the booking that they haven't built up anybody that would fit in the spot. I mean, if we still had the traditional pay-per-view model, it makes sense that, we need someone like Bill Goldberg, you know, to pop our pay-per-view number. But it's just not really how the business is anymore. So I just don't get it. I don't want to see it. It means nothing to me.
Well, see, here's the sad thing. I don't know how much it would pop a traditional pay-per-view.
Well, that's true, too. That's kind of gets into a point I made on Twitter that, and I know he couldn't work at that point in time, but I think the correlation I used was like, this would be like if WWF, you know, brought back superstar Billy Graham to work in like 98 or 99 or something. You know, like years removed from their prime. He would have been about the same age as Bill Goldberg at that moment in time. And we've talked about this on the show before. You know, in the 90s, they didn't talk about wrestlers from the 60s and 70s, like ever. And it's just like today, they constantly talk about the 80s and 90s, and they just don't have the stars in recent years. And they always go back to that. I know the audience is older now, so they know the audience remember those people. You know, back in the 90s, there was a lot more younger people watching than there are now. So they weren't as familiar with like the 60s and 70s. Plus, there wasn't cable back then. So, it was a little bit different for sure. It's not a perfect correlation. I just think it's like, it's so odd when you think about how long it's been since 97 and 98. We're almost a quarter century away from Goldberg's height.
Well, yeah, and to be clear, we're also more than a decade past Sheamus's debut, if you want to, examine that. It's funny. Everything you just said, I think, kind of speaks to what I was saying, and there's a larger picture here beyond Goldberg. Whether, if you just don't like Goldberg, I get it. And I want to preface with everything I say with one thing. Goldberg beating McIntyre would obviously be very terrible. And I saw some people speculating, he's going to beat him, and then he's going to go on and work Reigns. I don't see that at all. Maybe that's why I'm not as upset as some people seem to be. We know this. Before we get broad, let's just examine this match real quick, okay? It was put together seemingly on very short notice, again, which speaks to the booking issues, right?
Yeah.
So Meltzer reported, and I don't know if this is true, but I have no reason to think that it isn't, that WWE made this decision like 48 hours before Raw, that no, we're doing Goldberg and Drew at the Rumble. Now, we know Goldberg is contracted, because I think he said this in interviews, for 2 matches this year. So he has to wrestle twice, whether you want him to or not. Mm-hmm. He's going to wrestle twice. Even before this was put together, I was thinking the Rumble may not be a bad spot if you have to use him, because Drew and Roman are retaining anyway. So why not just have Bill put him over there? Because I think that actually works better than having Bill work one of those guys at Mania.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, because the issue is you would hope they have something planned for Mania already. You would hope. I don't know if they do or what it is, but you would hope. Whereas here, they just didn't have anything. I feel Goldberg getting the spot. Whatever else you want to come up with that they could have done, I don't think is a big deal. I just don't think there is a significant plan B where I'm like so upset that I'm not getting it, especially on the Drew McIntyre side.
Yeah. I just hope, like you said, it would be atrocious if Goldberg beats him. Yeah. And, our post show on YouTube that night will be crazy if that actually happens.
I just don't think it will. Like, I saw some people like, oh my God, they're like, to me, I just think Bill's going to do the job. And, the goal is just to continue to strengthen McIntyre. And to be honest with you, if, kind of the fear of Goldberg winning rallies a large segment of fan base around Drew McIntyre, it's probably a good thing. And again, as long as he wins.
Yeah.
And another reason I have actually no problem with the match is this is a show we're going to have 2-hour-long matches, right? The 2 Rumbles. Mm-hmm. This ain't going more than 10. About 9:30, podcasters across this world are going to be thanking Bill Goldberg on January.
I hope 31st. So. I hope so.
They're going to be thanking Bill Goldberg that we get a short match on a show like this.
Oh man, I hope you're right.
So it's funny you talk about. I want to go back to something you said in your little spiel there about, in the 90s, they didn't talk about old wrestlers like they do now. Well, they kind of did sometimes, but it was always like, oh, look at this. Like, this guy's old. Like, it was never like he's better than the current crop of people. Like they bring back, I'm trying to think of some people, like something just totally like just random. Like when they brought back Tony Atlas, okay, or Rocky Johnson for the Rocky Sultan angle. I don't know why that's what popped into my head for a random thing at WrestleMania 13. They were at no point were the announcers trying to get over the fact or conveying that Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas were more important than the people in the ring. Yeah. Even though Rocky at that point sucked and the Sultan was terrible. Like even as bad as that was, they still didn't drive home the fact, oh, look at these better older stars from the past. Such a big problem for the WWE in the present tense is, that the only hierarchy that this promotion is really established is that the legends are better than the current stars.
Which is why Drew McIntyre better win. Because, the fear is that they're going to do Roman and Goldberg in like a unification match.
I just don't think that's going to happen, though.
I don't think it is either. We'll talk about our Rumble picks here at the end.
Because I'll tell you why. It goes against like everything WWE does. WWE is like this cookie cutter booking where there's a Raw champion, there's a SmackDown champion. Well, what are they going to do? Like, look, I think there should be one quote unquote world champion. I do. I just don't think WWE is going to do that, because what do you do with the Rumble winner then? You're having a Rumble later that night. What's the winner going to do? So to me, that makes no sense. That idea. People were like really losing their minds on Twitter, the night of when Goldberg showed up about that. And I was just like, guys, I don't see this happening at all.
Mm-hmm.
So again, maybe that's why I wasn't as upset, is because like the fears that some fans seem to have that Goldberg would win and it's him and Reigns is the main event. I just don't buy that at all. I just think that this is a case of it's Rumble time. Vince looked at the card, didn't like it, and decided to use one of Bill's 2 dates. And maybe Bill won't be on Mania at all, which I'd be fine with. If they use him here and then they, wait, 6-8 months and use him at the end of the year for his other contracted date, whatever.
Let me ask you this. So is Roman Reigns actually going to work Adam Pearce, or is this a swerve?
Look, and that's another thing. Okay. Royal Rumble is no less than the third most important show of the year, right? You can make an argument it's the second most important show.
Yeah.
It's kind of 2A, 2B with SummerSlam now, right? Throughout history, they've taken their turns being the second most important show. I'd say they're kind of level in 2021. Your true world title matches for this show, again, no less than the third most important show of the year. You're bringing back a 54-year-old guy, okay, whose, peak was in 1998. And the other challenger is Adam Pearce, who is like kind of a de facto commissioner on TV that, okay, look, the audience is down to what it is. So like probably, to be honest, most of your audience does know who Adam Pearce is.
Mm-hmm.
But like Adam Pearce has done nothing on a national level. And, no disrespect to Adam Pearce, you know what that means. Like, this is just sad. Like, with a roster this big, that you would have currently slated Bill Goldberg and Adam Pearce as your challengers. That is an indictment of the booking. And you don't have one current guy slated for that spot. Now, I know that there's a chance that they pull, it is a swerve and it's not going to be Adam Pearce and it's going to be like Owens or whatever. But I don't agree with that kind of booking anyway. Even if it is a swerve, I've never agreed with the let's advertise a match that isn't going to happen.
Right.
I hate that booking. I don't think it's ever worked. Name me one instance where it's worked. Like, I think the first time they did it was when they announced Hogan Flair at WrestleMania 8. And they had no intention of doing it by that point. But and obviously, look, Roman Pearce is not Hogan Flair. But I just don't agree with that either. I mean, that's again just an indictment of the book. That's just as bad as what they're doing over on Raw.
Well, by the time some of you listen to this, maybe we'll have some answers, because SmackDown will air tomorrow night, and we'll see.
Yeah, it's so funny too. Like we were talking about Shinsuke Nakamura, texting about him over the thing. How like just out of the blue, all of a sudden, like. He's on the fringes of a world title shot. And, look, we can all talk about how he's underutilized, right? And maybe has gotten a Raw deal since the NXT call-up. But, like, again, just like, and some people were like, I read a report, Vince McMahon asked the writers, who's underutilized? And we're going to start using them. Again, it's just an indictment. Like, you shouldn't have to do that.
Yeah. You should know.
Yeah, it just looks really bad. Like, you do the SmackDown recaps for comic book, and you said this. When was the last time Shinsuke Nakamura won a singles match on television?
It's like September, I believe.
Okay, So it speaks to his ability to still get people to care about him, I guess, in that gauntlet scenario. But a guy who has not won on television since September should not be someone that the crowd is rallying behind to get a world title shot in January. It just shouldn't be that way. Yeah. It's kind of sad that that's the case. And it just, again, speaks to WWE booking, that what happened 2, 3, 4 weeks ago, let alone 2, 3, 4 months ago, is irrelevant. And the crowd's just like, oh my God, this is something fresh and something, please just give us this.
Yeah, he's been in mostly tag team matches, alongside Cesaro. So they've won some matches. But as far as a singles match, his last televised singles victory, September 25th over Gran Metalik on SmackDown. Pretty crazy.
I just it seems like I'm just ripping WWE to shreds, but I don't know, man. The stuff I've watched, particularly on the Raw side the last 2 weeks, just have me scratch my head for this company. And, it's funny because I think it was about, 3 years ago now at this point? Ryan, you shared with me some information, which I'll never forget and never let go.
God, what is this?
You're like,
early 2018? Okay.
Yeah, Kyle, some people say you're kind of a bit of a WWE apologist.
Oh, yes.
Imagine that. And people might remember that quote like I do and say, oh, what's happened to Kyle in the last 3 years? He's just always just ripping WWE. Folks, 3 years ago, Justin Joint, Ryan Drosty, and myself were a few months away from heading down to New Orleans to watch WrestleMania. Okay? That show had what we all thought was going to be a transcendent title change with Roman beating Brock Lesnar. That was royally screwed up. It had the return of Daniel Bryan, which I know a lot of people, myself in particular, were very fired up over. Mm-hmm. The in-ring debut of Ronda Rousey. 2 matches that were marketed like almost as dream matches with Charlotte and Asuka and AJ Styles against Shinsuke Nakamura. Mm-hmm. Think about all that. And then fast forward to right now. What the hell does this company have to even compare to that? And nobody, and I do mean nobody, feels that the WWE was in peak form in 2018.
No.
Think about that. But the decline over the last 2 years has just been jaw-dropping.
That card sounds freaking incredible in retrospect. When I think about it.
And people are gonna say, "Oh, pandemic, it's not fair." I don't think last year's WrestleMania would have been awesome in front of a crowd. I mean, hell, they pulled it off. Okay, a tip of the cap to you, for even getting the show, to air. But what do you have to go to? Even WrestleMania 35, it had the the history-making moment of the women main eventing for the first time. That was a big deal. I just don't know what you have right now in this promotion that can come across as remotely significant. And that is sad, man. We're, a little over 2 months away from WrestleMania, Ryan?
Yeah.
Name me one interesting thing that this company has the potential to do based on the television over the last 6 to 9 months.
The only thing really drawing my interest is, and probably my pick right now, and the odds makers have him as the pick, is Bryan winning the Rumble and building up Bryan versus Roman. I mean,
I'm glad we went that way because I was going to transition to that. Okay, because it's very funny.
Yeah.
How has Daniel Bryan been booked over the last 6 to 9 months?
Sparingly,
and not well. I remember. Was it the TLC post show? You gave a passion rant
about, he was on the pre-show.
Yeah, about his. Yep. You're like, this is Daniel Bryan, one of the great wrestlers. Again, I was so jazzed when he returned. I remember that was one of the last times I watched Raw and was had the good feels running through my body. And again, with Reigns doing what he's doing and Bryan being as great as he is, you're going to be able to tell a pretty good story there, probably, right? And there's some history. They probably will go back to 2015 and tell that story. But you can't help but feel if Daniel Bryan had been made to feel like a big deal, like the big deal he is, that this could be a big thing. But like when you book a guy, just as a total throwaway for the balance of a year or so, I mean, I just don't know. That doesn't like fire me up that much. I mean, Bryan's going to give it his all, I hope. And it should be a very good match when they hit the ring. But I just think it's like, oh, yeah, well, we can always go back to Daniel Bryan, even though we've booked him like shit. And, I was texting with our good buddy Liam O'Rourke, actually, about this, about my frustrations, because I was actually just going off about modern wrestling in general to him. And he had this great comment. He's written a book, so it's not a surprise. It should be a surprise to anybody that he's a good writer. But he wrote this to me. One of WWE's biggest problems is they've created an environment where they believe no one's value ever changes. And because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, nobody's ever does. But with time and stagnation, everybody naturally means less and less with every passing month. And he's completely correct. Daniel Bryan should mean so much more, especially the idea of him challenging Roman Reigns for the title. But it really doesn't, because he's been a mid-carder ever since he lost to Kofi Kingston.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, most of his 2020, like he was in that Intercontinental title tournament, doing the stuff, building up Drew Gulak. Then he was gone for like 5 months, through the summer, which they, he had a child, right, during that time. So certainly entitled to take the time off. He comes back. They shot the angle with Jey Uso, taking out his frustrations on Bryan, hurting him. Bryan comes back a few weeks later. That was interesting. But then pretty quickly, a couple weeks after that, he's in the kickoff show on TLC, which you just mentioned. And a couple weeks ago on SmackDown, he's tag teaming with Otis against Cesaro and Shinsuke Nakamura. So I mean, they don't exactly have him, in the highest spot on the card, that's for sure. Considering this is a guy that we thought we were never going to see wrestle again, and we got all this bonus time with him. That everything he does should be important. Yeah,
if you didn't read the rumors online, you would really have no inkling that Daniel Bryan is a guy who's going to be in one of the 2 world title matches at WrestleMania, in my opinion, just based off watching television. Mm-hmm. He has not been portrayed in that way. He's not a guy who has all this momentum and has been like, the centerpiece of the show. So, I don't know. I mean, I get, it almost feels like they've gotten to this point and they're like, oh, fuck, we don't have any ideas. And it's hard. And again, man, I'm killing them this week even more than I usually do, but I feel it's really warranted, them meaning WWE. And this goes back to the Goldberg discussion, why I can't even be mad specifically at Goldberg or them bringing him back, because my issues with WWE are on such a fundamental level that the individual pushes they give or the individual booking decisions they make are actually immaterial to me, because I just disagree with how the promotion books in such a broad sense that, to me, if they push someone I don't like, that doesn't even matter anymore. And it's kind of sad.
Yeah.
Or, if it just, I don't know, man. It's a sad time entering 2021 for this promotion. I don't even want to get into that Legends show.
Oh God.
I don't want to get into the Fireballs. That was so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, why not?
I don't know if I want to open that bag of worms.
I mean, why not just drag the carcass of Jerry Lawler onto television and urinate on him? Because that's what you did. I know our good buddy Derek's listening. I know he's listening. Okay. That Fireball spot. I mean, Vince McMahon might as well have just pulled his pants down and taken a giant shit on the city of Memphis, Tennessee.
Oh my God.
It was an embarrassment.
Yeah.
That and the Keith Lee Karrion Kross contract thing too. I mean, look, man, I love a good Fireball, and I realize you don't want to have the embarrassment of Hogan Warrior at Halloween Havoc, right? When you can't get the thing going. Or what was the other one? There was another one that was like real bad around that. Oh, Mick Foley and the Undertaker. When they burned Paul Bearer's face, remember? Like they couldn't get that was like really horrible. But come on, man. That shit looks cheesy.
Yeah. I think to the WrestleMania discussion, the only match, if you go back months, that people were pointing to as like a possibility and one that people are excited about was, a possible Roman Rock match, which again, it's an old person. I know I was critical of that earlier, but The Rock is like still right now, like maybe the biggest acting star in the world. So if you can do that, you have to do it. But at the same time, like it was always obvious that they weren't going to be able to do that at Mania this year because of COVID. And even when Roman came back and he did the heel turn and everyone was like, oh, this is going to turn into like a family thing and he's going to wrestle The Rock. Like nobody thought, go back to whatever, September or something in the aftermath of that. Nobody thought by Mania we'd have a full crowd where you could do Rock. I mean, I think we even said on the show at the time, there's no way they're going to do Rock at WrestleMania because they can't get a full crowd and you can't do that match unless you've got 60,000 people. I mean, that match was always like a year and a half out.
Yeah, I mean, The Rock is not going to give you, the friendly discount. Okay, I mean, it costs a lot of money to get him to wrestle, and you can't do it in front of a small or even half crowd. And
so, he's an Attitude Era guy, but he's also still a massive star. So I think that's a little different than Goldberg coming back.
Look, I'm not saying, and I don't think and obviously you're never saying, you can't ever bring, to that point, you can't ever bring back stars from the past. I'm not saying that, but like, to be honest, the problem is how often they do it, right? It's like, how many Legends Nights have there been? And these Legends Nights, like, I was fascinated by the ratings breakdown Meltzer provided. Did you read that?
Mm-mm.
Who the big gains were with? It wasn't old people. It was actually young people who I guess are just curious to see these people that maybe they didn't have a chance with. It was people like way younger than us.
Mm-hmm.
And that fascinated me, but it also, it kind of got me to thinking about something I was thinking while watching the show. If you're an older fan, like even older than us, okay, and you tune in to see Hogan and Flair, the usage of them is almost offensive to that fan base. Like the way these Legends shows are, it's just like a bunch of old dudes randomly wandering in the hallway and the current guys walk up to them and do an interview and that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's just like, oh, hey, look, it's some, it's, whoever. I can't remember the one. There was it like with Alicia Fox or God, there was one interview that was just so random. And the people, freaking Tatanka.
You're not calling him a legend, Kyle?
Look, like Bill, he had an undefeated streak going for a while, didn't he?
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't even know how I got on that tangent. The only other thing I want to talk about is Charlotte Flair.
All right, I was going to ask if you still wanted to do this or not. All right. Kyle, your thoughts on Charlotte Flair as of right now?
It's
Do
not
you like
her
the
fault.
fact that her father and Lacey Evans are doing the thing?
I want to be amused by it because if Rick puts some heart into it, it'll draw some laughs. But Meltzer brought this up. Didn't they on their own television establish that Lacey Evans not only has a child but is married?
Yeah, I mean they showed her child in the front row of a pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean they did that, but I mean did they ever establish
they don't want you to pay attention that closely.
Okay,
you're penalized for that. Don't you know that by now?
Remember the Lacey Evans babyface run of 2020? Yes. Wasn't the whole thing that she was this great mom and family woman?
It was weird how they did that though, because we've always talked about, she has, and it's been talked about a lot, that she does have a pretty interesting backstory with her military service and everything, and it's something that they could lean into, and she, could maybe get a pretty good response from the crowd. But when they turned her babyface, she basically was still the Southern Belle, that character. It was just okay, now she's just a bait, but it didn't make sense. Imagine that. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, she's still dressed the same way. She's pretty much acting the same way. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, in WWE now, babyface and heel turns, you can only tell based on who they wrestle. I feel like these people will turn, but they still they act the same way. It's very odd. But back to Charlotte. Okay, speaking of people who seemingly vacillate between babyface and heel a lot, and it's a problem with her because. Again, I don't think it's her fault. It's just the way she's presented. Charlotte Flair, to me, is the worst main event level babyface for me
other than WCW era Hogan and Triple H in terms of people that just annoy me and I don't want to cheer for. Again, it's not her fault. I know she got real fired up at some article that was written online about her. But she's been brought back and she's doing this team with Asuka. It's so obvious that she's the one who's like presented as the star.
Yeah.
Right? She gets introduced second. She gets the hot tags. And that's whatever, man. It's their prerogative. But like, I just find her to be very unlikable as a baby face. And if their big idea to get people fired up about Charlotte Flair as a baby face is Ric Flair, her dad, is doing her rival, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I mean, I think the whole Queen gimmick and whatever, she's great as a heel. I'm not saying Charlotte Flair, should be, thrown to the scrap heap, anything but. Charlotte Flair is someone who does come across as a star, which is a problem for the most part on this roster. She does, but like Charlotte is like just an awful baby face, Like she just comes across as like somebody you don't want to root for.
Yeah, she should not be cast in that role.
Yeah, like 100%. What was the problems with those two that I mentioned before? WCW era Hogan and Triple H. Just like not sympathetic really at all. Right? And they always get the best of everyone and like, they just don't have, they just kind of rub you the wrong way. It's just, I don't know, man. Charlotte Flair is a baby. And I was like thinking that even before her dad turned on her. I was like watching TV from a couple weeks ago. I was like, God, this Charlotte annoys me as a baby face. So I don't know. She can attack me all she wants, but I don't know. I just
well, we're big Charlotte Flair fans as far as her in-ring work. It's just not the right.
She should turn heel. I mean,
it's not the right.
She should turn heel, and she should probably lose more. So,
all right. So, real quickly here, AEW the last couple of weeks has had a couple of pretty highly reviewed matches. One I think I liked a lot, but got a lot higher star ratings than I would have given it. But the Rey Fenix Omega match last week was very good. I think in the Observer, Dave gave it 5 stars. I wouldn't go 5 stars on it. I thought it was a really fun match, though.
No, it was a very good TV world title match.
Yeah.
I was astounded when I saw the star rating. Astounded.
What would you give that match star-wise? We kind of talk about this sometimes.
3 3/4?
Yeah, I'd say like right around 4 too. I'm usually a little bit higher than you. But I'm about there. 4 4.25-ish. It was a really fun match, but like we've talked about this before, 5-star matches should be like just defining moment.
Yeah, you're going to talk about it forever. I mean, in 3 months, who's going to remember that match? Meltzer called it the best match in the history of Dynamite. I don't think that's the case. Yeah, I liked Cody and Eddie Kingston better. I liked the street fight better with best friends against Santana and Ortiz.
That hectic tag in the summer they had on Dynamite was a really good one too. The 8-man or something.
Yeah.
You talked about on the 2020 show. Was it 6-man? I can't remember. 6 or 8.
No, it was an 8-man with the Bucks and stuff like that. Yeah, I remember you talked about. But I even like the 6-man from the Brody Lee tribute show.
Yeah,
I like that better. To be blunt with you. So I mean, teach his own. I mean, it's a match. And this is not a criticism of Dave, so don't ever get
We love Uncle Dave.
Okay, but like that match is very clearly a match Dave Meltzer will give a higher star rating to than Kyle Ross.
Yeah.
And that's not like I'm like saying I'm better. It's just as long as you're consistent and you could convey what you like, it's fine. And that is completely. Again, I was kind of shocked. Still 5, but like it's a match he's going to give a high rating to. There's no doubt about it.
So yeah, it was a fun match. I think the Omega stuff is pretty cool. They did the reunion, the Bullet Club reunion at the end of that show, which got everyone talking. Then this week, you were supposed to have the Elite Wrestling Omega and the Bucks, but instead Omega ditched them, and in come the Good Brothers, and they worked together, which was entertaining. I like that. Got some television time there for Brian Pillman Jr., which I'm always a fan of. And then in the main event this week, I thought the Darby Allin Brian Cage match was really good too. Some pretty cool spots. Obviously, Allen's always just taking a beating out there. I thought the spot where he came through with the suicide dive and he got caught into the suplex spot where he carried him around. That was awesome. And then, of course, when Cage tossed him through the table on the outside, that was just freaking insane.
The homage to Mike Awesome Spike Dudley.
Yes.
I felt like, yes.
Also, a really fun one. And I just think the overall thing is that less is more. We talk about this on the show all the time. 2 hours of Dynamite a week. It's easy to keep up with. They got, for the most part, quality television. And just WWE has just been such a chore to get through lately and to keep up with everything. If you want to watch NXT, if you want to watch Raw and SmackDown, you're talking about a 7-hour commitment per week right there. That doesn't even take into account the UK show. And it's just, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking and joking about it off air that, when it's time to play catch up for the podcast to make sure you've watched everything. And by the way, we don't even have time to talk about Wrestle Kingdom, and that's a good thing because I haven't even gotten all the way through it.
Same.
That's something I'll do with Facebook. I'll watch all the 5 big matches and I'll rank them, the ones that everyone loves. And just as a heads up, I'll probably not like them as much as everyone else seems to, but I guess that's just par for the course in 2021 with me and wrestling. But AEW, I think one of the big things for me is you've got a pay-per-view 6 weeks away, and there's really no clear direction for that pay-per-view yet. I think that's odd. As much as the TV has been good, that's something, there's directions they could go in. They've teased a lot of stuff, but for me, that's where I'm at with AEW is where are they going for that Revolution pay-per-view? Because they've got a lot of moving pieces.
Pretty obvious, but outside of that.
Yeah, I guess you're right. They'll probably do the big rematch there.
But outside of that, yeah, you're right.
Mm-hmm.
There's, who's going to be in the tag title match? Who's going to be in the TNT title match? We don't know. So
it is interesting what they're doing with the Bucks and Kenny, because it's pretty clear to me that the Bucks are going to wrestle Gallows and Anderson at one point, and that that's kind of a relationship that who knows when it'll break down, but it will. So that's something to monitor. But
I could see him doing that at Revolution, just because you got Omega working the Impact pay-per-view, and there's your payback, after that at Revolution. I probably will do that, actually.
Yeah, so I just think that's something to monitor moving forward. I did think that, the last 3 weeks of TV have been pretty good, and, including, obviously, the Brody Lee tribute was just an all-timer. It's a show that you wish didn't happen, obviously. But it also was something that I don't think could have been possibly done any better. A new standard, quite frankly, for tribute shows in this industry. So, that's I think that main event was very good. Now, I really liked Eddie Kingston and Pac, too. It speaks to their booking that they're able to put together those Road 2 specials on YouTube for their TV.
Yeah.
Again, and there's a lot of callbacks throughout in AEW to things. It's one company invests in long-term booking, whereas the other does not. And that's, I think, maybe what I want to put a bow on this entire show with. People ask, how could WWE get better? They're not going to get better until there's an investment in long-term booking.
Yeah.
It's just that simple.
Yeah. Well said. As of right now, as the year begins, that's where I'm at too. AEW Weekly is my must watch, and then with WWE, I'm usually kind of playing catch up. I always watch SmackDown because I'm covering it for Comic Book, but outside of that, it's trying to catch up with Raw and trying to catch up with NXT. But AEW is it's such a tight show once a week, and right now there's just the best product out there.
It just feels newer too. Like, what was the main event on Raw this past week? This is not a trick question, by the way. I know what the answer was, and I assume you do as well.
Yeah, and, Triple H versus Randy Orton.
So if you've got, I'm not being paid for this, okay? But I'll do this. I'll give a shout out. If you have a subscription to F4W Online, shout out to our good buddy Garrett, by the way. You should check out the new back issue they posted over there. Every week they post a new back issue. It's one of the first weeks of 2004 is where they're at. And Dave took a look at that time at what needs to be done to rebuild the WWE's fading popularity. I implore you, if you have a subscription to that website, to go back and read that headline story today, because it is so jaw-dropping to read what he was saying in 2004 with 2021 eyes.
Interesting. I like that tease. I'll have to go back because I haven't read it since 2004.
Yeah.
Very good. All right. Well, this was our catching up on 2021 show, and
Called it in the ring.
we called it in the ring. We did. We kind of put the show notes together at the last minute, got this show recorded. Like I said, shifting schedule, so Justin couldn't join us, but he'll be back next week, and we'll be back with another show next week as we get closer to the 2021 Royal Rumble. Guys, we'll be seeing you over on the Facebook group. Join us for the discussion. Go facebook.com, search Top Rope Nation Pro Wrestling Discussion. You can follow me on Twitter at Ryan Droste. That's Droste. Kyle's at TRP Kyle. The show at Top Rope Nation on Instagram and Twitter. And then Justin Joint. Throw him the shout out at Justin Joint, JOYNT. Thanks to the sponsors of the show. Thanks to Blue Wire for bringing you episode 191. See you guys next week. Have a good weekend.
Peace.